So I want to talk a little bit about dangers to the family that you face from the internet. And the chief one that we'll talk about here, and which you probably guessed would be addressed, is going to be pornography. It is a huge temptation on the internet because, unlike other types of pornography used up to this point, it's very difficult to be caught using it. There's very little accountability. And so you can use this and you think with impunity that nothing will happen to you. Men oftentimes do it, and they do it in a time or a place when no one is around in their household. Their wife's not around, their children aren't around. And they do this and they try and sneak it in there, and they think no one will ever know, no one will catch you. Well, we find in the Bible, in Psalms 101 and verse 3, it talks about not setting any wicked things before your eyes. This is an application of a Bible principle here, is to keep the pornography off of our computers. And not only is it dangerous because it's so easy to use and difficult to get caught, the pornographers aren't happy with just making their wares available to you on the internet. Oftentimes, they try everything that they can to get it onto your computer screen. That trick that I mentioned about mistyping a web address and sending you to a website that you didn't want to go to, oftentimes they'll do that. And your kids and people who aren't sure of what they're doing on the internet often fall prey to this. They're doing everything they can to get it onto your screen. You might have typed in a word to search innocently, and it brings up something that you had no intention of. And because there's no filter on your internet, it just allows you to go to that site. I believe that there was a statistic that said in children ages 13 to 17 that 66% of them had accessed pornography and they did not mean to on the internet. They had no intention of doing it, but 66% of them just trying to do something completely different, research for homework maybe, and they came across these websites. As of 2004, and this statistic is a little bit old, but I'm sure the number has grown, there were 420 million sites of pornography on the internet. 420 million. And that was 3 years ago. Imagine what that number is today. And they're trying to get it into your home in any way that they can. And so there's two main ways that we should talk about to keep you safe and your family safe from pornography. And I'm really happy to get an opportunity to talk to the women and the men together in this, because the wives can really help their husbands in this a lot. The main way to do it is to be accountable. Set up some kind of system of accountability so that you and your children, anyone that uses your home computer, that they are accountable for their actions on it. Something that you need to do is, if your computer is in your office or in your basement or somewhere where no one ever goes in but you, and it's very easy to just look at something and have no one know what you're doing, that is too much of a risk. You need to take that computer and put it into a living room or a family room, somewhere where the monitor is openly facing everyone that walks in or walks through a hallway. It's a way to keep you accountable so that everyone knows what you're doing on the internet when you're doing it. Even if you're not doing anything wrong or tempted to do so, it keeps you clean in your testimony, because you'll say, there's no way I could have been doing that. My wife could see anything that I would have done on the internet. I have a friend who never goes on the internet unless his wife is in the room with him. I also have a friend who, and I do this myself, who shares an email account with his wife. And so that way, that anything that would come to my email address, my wife also reads. So that way, if a pornographer were to try and solicit me for something, she would know about it and she could bring it up and we could talk about it together. Or if I got involved in something I shouldn't be involved in and they were trying to contact me and to do more and to spend more money, because to them it's just a business. They don't care about your family. They don't care about your children. They want to make money. So they'll do whatever they can to get on there. And so if they try and contact you for this and your wife knows about it, you two can talk about it, and it's a way to keep you accountable for it. And so accountability is very, very important. Have a purpose when you go on the internet. Wandering around in the wrong part of town in this world physically often leads to trouble. And it's the same thing in the internet. If you have no reason to be somewhere when you're just surfing the internet, oftentimes you're going to stumble into something you don't want to see and linger there longer than you should. And so I suggest to you to have a purpose. Monitor what your children do on the internet. Never, ever, ever let your children have unfiltered internet in their bedroom. Never allow them to do that. It's too much of a temptation. And people are out there looking for them on the internet. And that brings us to our second point here. It brings us to internet predators. Internet predators are individuals that use the internet to contact, deceive, and manipulate your children into having inappropriate relationships with them. And they're out there, and they do this all the time. This is like their job to them. And so your children are at risk in this. 1 out of 5 children that use the internet and ever use any kind of social websites like chat rooms or MySpace or things like that, 1 in 5, ages 13 to 17, have been approached by an internet predator. 1 in 5. That's too high of a number. And any number would be too high, and so we need to make sure our children know about these people. Oftentimes, they will pretend to be someone or something that they're not, like in the other scams of the internet. I want to read to you, real quick before I finish here, a conversation that might have taken place online, in a chat room perhaps. A chat room is a website where people can go and talk to each other no matter where they are in the world. And oftentimes when you have a chat room or an instant messenger, you get to choose something called a screen name. It is a name by which you are known on the internet and other people see that that is who that person is identifying themselves as when they send a message. And this is a conversation between a young girl who calls herself Pooh Bear 105 and a man who calls himself named Dylan 955. But things aren't always as they seem. Pooh Bear writes, "We won our softball game today." Dylan responds, "Congrats. What team do you play for?" Pooh Bear, "I play for the Jonestown Wildcats." Dylan, "Cool. My team is the Centerville Sluggers. I play second base." Pooh Bear, "I play third base." Dylan, "We haven't started playing yet. It is too cold here in Northeast Pennsylvania." Pooh Bear, "I hate the cold. I am so glad I live in Florida." Dylan, "I can't wait for Tuesday. It is our first game." Pooh Bear, "Cool. I have a game on Tuesday too." Now, what did Pooh Bear just give out? She gave out every piece of information. She didn't know she was doing it, but every piece of information she would need to give to this Dylan person to come and find her. Told her when she's going to be at the ball field on Tuesday, what position she plays on that team. Pooh Bear might not know it, but she could have a visitor at her next softball game. And so these are the kind of things that happen on the internet. And if your children aren't addressed about this, we don't talk to them and tell them things aren't always as they seem on the internet, they could fall victim to different scams like this. It's important to tell them not to give out confidential information. In fact, I would be very careful to monitor what your children do in any chat rooms at all on the internet. How many of you have heard of MySpace? Just about everybody's heard of MySpace. This is a hotbed of internet predators searching out young children because they post pictures of themselves online, give out information about their friends and their family and their interests, and it's very easy for someone to track down your child through this. It's just too much of a risk. I encourage you strongly not to have your children be involved in this. It opens them up to too much of a possibility of something like this happening, even if they didn't even know about it. And so the internet is a tool, and there are dangers with it, but there are also good things. And so you wouldn't want to use a tool without being properly versed on how to do it. And so I really suggest to you, if you take nothing home from this, is to talk with your children and your family about accountability, get some kind of web filter on your software, on your browser, so that you can be kept from the stuff you don't want to view. This is something that needs to be talked about and addressed. And after we are finished here today, I'll be available for questions if anyone has specifics that they'd like to talk about. Thank you for your time.